Gareth Bale's voice cracked as he gripped the steering wheel tighter. The GPS had died 20 minutes ago, leaving them stranded on a dirt road that seemed to lead deeper into the Welsh countryside's most forbidden territory. We should have never taken this shortcut to the charity match. Cristiano Ronaldo adjusted his designer sunglasses despite the growing darkness around them. Relax, my friend. I've been in worse situations. Remember that time in Turin when a deafening crack split the air? The Range Rover lurched violently to the right, tires screaming against gravel before coming to a bone-jarring halt. Steam hissed from beneath the crumpled hood where a massive oak branch had crashed down, crushing the engine compartment completely. "Fuck me sideways," Bale muttered, his Welsh accent thickening with panic. "The engine's proper fucked, isn't it?" Ronaldo stepped out, his perfectly styled hair already disheveled by the unnatural wind that seemed to whisper through the trees. The forest around them was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Twisted branches formed, grotesque shapes against the blood-red sky, and shadows moved independently of their sources. "We need to find help," he said, but his usual confidence wavered. "There must be a village nearby." "Help? In this godforsaken place?" Bale laughed bitterly, pulling out his phone. "No signal, of course." "This forest gives me the creeps, CR. Look at those trees, they're watching us, I swear to God." The silence that followed was oppressive, broken only by the distant sound of something large moving through the underbrush. Both men froze, their athletic instincts kicking in. "Did you hear that?" Ronaldo whispered, his hand instinctively reaching for Bale's shoulder. "Something's out there." A low growl echoed through the trees, followed by the snap of breaking branches. Whatever was approaching was massive, and it wasn't trying to hide its presence. The sound grew closer, circling them like a predator sizing up its prey. "Right, that's it. We're getting the hell out of here," Bale declared, grabbing their emergency backpack from the rear seat. "I don't care if we have to walk all bloody night. This place is cursed, mate. Can't you feel it?" Ronaldo nodded grimly. The air itself seemed thick with malevolence, pressing down on them like a weight. Even his legendary confidence was cracking. They began walking deeper into the forest, the broken car disappearing behind them into the gathering gloom. Ancient trees loomed overhead, their branches interwoven so thickly that barely any light penetrated the canopy. The path, if it could be called that, twisted and turned unpredictably. "This is mental," Bale muttered, stepping over a fallen log. "Absolutely mental." After what felt like hours, they came upon a clearing where moonlight revealed something that made both men's blood run cold. Stone circles, ancient and weathered, stood in perfect formation around a central altar stained dark with what looked disturbingly like dried blood. "Jesus Christ," Ronaldo breathed. "What is this place?" "Druid stones," Bale whispered, his voice barely audible. "My grandmother used to tell stories about places like this. Sacred sites where ancient rituals were performed. We shouldn't be here, CR. We really shouldn't be here." As if summoned by his words, a figure emerged from the shadows between the stones. Tall and impossibly thin, wrapped in tattered robes that seemed to move independently of any wind. "Welcome, champions," the figure spoke, its voice like grinding stone. "I have been expecting you." Ronaldo stepped protectively in front of Bale, his muscles tensing. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure's hood fell back, revealing a face that was more skull than flesh, with eyes that burned like embers in the darkness. "I am the guardian of this sacred place," it continued, circling them slowly. "For centuries, I have waited for worthy souls to complete the ancient trial. You have been chosen." "Chosen for what?" Bale demanded, though his voice shook with barely contained terror. "We're just lost, mate. We don't want any trouble." "The Forest of Whispers does not lose travelers by accident," the guardian hissed. It calls to those who possess extraordinary gifts. Your fame, your talents, your very essence, all of it has drawn you here for a purpose. A cold wind swept through the clearing, and the stones began to glow with an eerie blue light. The air crackled with supernatural energy. "This is bollocks," Bale snarled, his fear transforming into anger. "We're leaving. Now." He turned to go, but found their path blocked by shadowy figures emerging from the tree line. Dozens of them, all wearing the same tattered robes, all with the same burning eyes. "You cannot leave until the trial is complete," the Guardian intoned. Ronaldo's fists clenched. "What trial? What do you want from us?" "The ancient game," the Guardian replied, gesturing toward the altar. "A test of skill, courage, and will. Should you succeed, you will be granted safe passage and great power. Should you fail, ... The implication hung in the air like a death sentence. "And if we refuse?" Bale asked, though he already knew the answer. The Guardian's skeletal smile was answer enough. The shadowy figures moved closer, their movements unnaturally fluid. There was no escape. They were trapped in a nightmare that defied all logic and reason. "The trial begins at dawn," the Guardian announced. "Rest while you can, champions. Tomorrow, you face the ultimate test." The figures melted back into the shadows, leaving the two footballers alone in the glowing circle. Ronaldo sat heavily on one of the stones, his head in his hands. "This can't be happening. This can't be real." "Real or not, we're stuck," Bale said grimly. "Whatever this trial is, we need to be ready." They spent the night back to back, taking turns keeping watch. The forest was alive with sounds, whispers, and languages that predated human civilization. The padding of unseen feet, the flutter of wings from creatures that cast no shadow. Neither man slept, though exhaustion weighed heavily on them both. As dawn approached, the Guardian returned, flanked by its hooded disciples. "The trial is simple," it announced. "You must navigate the maze of echoes, reach the heart of the forest, and retrieve the crimson orb. But beware, the maze is alive, and it will test not just your physical abilities, but your deepest fears and darkest memories." A section of the forest floor began to shift and change, revealing a labyrinth of living hedge walls that pulsed with organic movement. "What happens if we get lost?" Ronaldo asked, though part of him didn't want to know. "The maze feeds on failure," the Guardian replied. "Those who cannot find their way become part of its eternal hunger. But you are champions, are you not? Surely you can handle a simple game." The taunt sparked something in both men's competitive spirits. "Right then," Bale said, rolling his shoulders. "Let's get this over with." They approached the maze entrance, where the hedge walls seemed to breathe and shift like living tissue. The path beyond was shrouded in mist that moved against the wind, and strange lights flickered in the distance. "Stay close," Ronaldo murmured. "Whatever happens, we stick together." The moment they stepped into the maze, the entrance sealed behind them with a sound like breaking bones. The hedge walls rose higher, blocking out the sky, and the mist grew thicker. Their footsteps echoed strangely, as if the maze itself was amplifying and distorting the sound. "Which way?" Bale whispered. Before Ronaldo could answer, the walls began to shift. The path they'd entered by disappeared, replaced by 3 new passages that definitely hadn't been there moments before. The maze was already changing, adapting, trying to confuse them. "Left," Ronaldo decided. "My instincts have never failed me." They moved cautiously down the chosen path, but after just a few minutes, they found themselves in a circular chamber with no exits except the way they'd come, which was now just solid hedge wall. "Fuck," Bale muttered. "It's already changing." The mist in the chamber began to swirl, forming shapes that looked almost human. Then the whispers started voices from their past, speaking words that cut deeper than any physical wound. "You're not good enough," the mist voices hissed. "You never were." All your success, all your fame, it's just luck. Ronaldo's jaw clenched. It's not real. It's just trying to mess with our heads. But the voices grew louder, more insistent. They spoke of every failure, every doubt, every moment of weakness both men had ever experienced. The mist began to take more solid form, becoming twisted versions of their critics, their rivals, their own inner demons. "You're washed up, old man," a mist Ronaldo sneered at the real one. "Your best days are behind you. Soon, everyone will forget the great Cristiano Ronaldo. And you," a mist Bale turned to the Welshman, "you're nothing but a bench warmer. A has-been who never lived up to his potential." The real Bale's hand shook with rage. "Shut up, shut the hell up," but his anger only seemed to feed the creatures. They grew more solid, more real, circling the two men like vultures. The chamber walls began to close in, the hedge growing inward with thorns that gleamed like razors. "Don't listen to them," Ronaldo said, grabbing Bale's arm. "They're not real. They're just using our own fears against us." He closed his eyes, centering himself the way he'd learned to do before crucial free kicks. When he opened them again, his gaze was steady, determined. "We are champions. We don't give up." The mist creatures recoiled slightly at his words, their forms becoming less solid. Bale saw the effect and straightened his own shoulders. "That's right. We faced worse than this on the pitch. We've overcome impossible odds before." Together, they began to walk forward, ignoring the taunts and jeers of the mist demons. The hedge walls stopped closing in, and slowly an exit appeared. They emerged into another section of the maze, but this one was different. The walls were covered in moving images, scenes from their lives, their careers, their greatest moments and worst failures. It was like walking through a living museum of their own experiences. "This is mental," Bale breathed, watching himself score the overhead kick in the Champions League final. "Stay focused," Ronaldo warned, though he too was transfixed by the images. "It's another test, another distraction." They pressed on, but the images grew more intense, more personal. Ronaldo saw his father's funeral, his struggles with depression, his moments of doubt and vulnerability. Bale saw his injury struggles, the criticism, the pressure that had sometimes felt unbearable. "Why are you showing us this?" Bale shouted at the hedge walls. "What's the point?" The images shifted, showing not just their past, but potential futures. Dark futures where they were forgotten, where their legacies crumbled, where they died alone and unmourned. "To understand the price of greatness," a voice whispered from the walls themselves. "To know what you risk by continuing forward." They reached another decision point, 5 passages this time, each one leading into deeper darkness. But now they could hear something else, a low, rhythmic pulsing that seemed to come from the heart of the maze itself. The orb, Ronaldo realized. "We're getting closer." They chose the middle passage, and immediately the temperature dropped. Their breath misted in the suddenly frigid air, and frost began to form on the hedge walls. The pulsing grew stronger, and with it came a sound like a massive heartbeat. "It's alive," Bale whispered. "The whole bloody maze is alive." The passage opened into a vast chamber, far larger than should have been possible within the maze. At its center stood a pedestal holding a crimson orb that pulsed with inner fire. But between them and their goal stood 3 figures that made both men's blood freeze. They were wearing the jerseys of their respective clubs, but their faces were rotted, their eyes empty sockets weeping blood. "The champions of the past," one of them spoke, its voice like grinding gravel. "We were like you once, proud, confident, believing ourselves invincible. What happened to you?" Ronaldo asked, though he dreaded the answer. "We failed the trial," another replied. "We became part of the maze, part of its eternal hunger." "But you can succeed where we failed," the third added, "if you're willing to pay the price." "What price?" Bale demanded. Everything you hold dear. Your fame, your legacy, your very identity. The orb will give you power beyond imagining, but it will consume who you are. You will become something else entirely. Ronaldo and Bale exchanged glances. They'd come so far, endured so much. But was survival worth losing themselves? There has to be another way, Ronaldo said. There's always another way. The rotted champions laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Spoken like a true competitor. But this isn't football, Cristiano. This is survival. Then we make our own rules, Bale said suddenly. We always have. He stepped forward, but instead of reaching for the orb, he grabbed Ronaldo's hand. Together, mate. Whatever happens, we face it together. The rotted champion shrieked as the two men approached the pedestal hand in hand. The orb pulsed brighter, and the chamber began to shake. You cannot cheat the trial, they screamed. You cannot change the rules. Watch us, Ronaldo said grimly. Together, they reached for the orb. The moment their fingers touched its surface, the world exploded into light. The chamber, the maze, the forest itself, all of it began to dissolve like a mirage in the desert. They found themselves back in the stone circle, but now it was different. The Guardian stood before them, but its skeletal features had been replaced by something more human, more benevolent. Clever, it said, and for the first time its voice held warmth. You understood the true nature of the trial. It was never about individual achievement. It was about unity, about the strength that comes from genuine partnership. So we passed? Bale asked, hardly daring to believe it. You did more than pass, the Guardian replied. You transcended the trial itself. The maze was designed to break you, to force you to choose between personal glory and mutual destruction. But you chose a third path: cooperation over competition. The stone circle began to fade, and with it, the oppressive atmosphere of the cursed forest. The twisted trees straightened, the shadows retreated, and clean sunlight began to filter through the canopy. The forest is free, the Guardian explained. And so are you. Your bond, forged in adversity, has broken a curse that has lasted for centuries. But what about getting home? Ronaldo asked. Our car. We'll be waiting for you at the forest's edge, the Guardian promised, fully repaired as if nothing happened. And you will find that your experience here has changed you, strengthened you, in ways you cannot yet imagine. They walked through the transforming forest, watching as it became a normal woodland. Birds sang, squirrels scampered, and the air smelled of pine and earth instead of decay and fear. Do you think anyone will believe us? Bale asked. Does it matter? Ronaldo replied, We know what we've been through. We know what we've learned. At the forest's edge, their Range Rover waited exactly as promised, pristine, with no sign of damage. But as they climbed in, both men felt different. The petty rivalries that had once defined their relationship seemed childish now. They had faced the ultimate test together and emerged not just survivors, but true friends. Same time next week? Bale joked as they drove away. Ronaldo laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had in months. Let's stick to regular roads from now on. Behind them, the forest watched their departure with benevolent eyes. The curse was broken, but the memory of two champions who had chosen friendship over personal glory would remain forever, a testament to the power of unity in the face of impossible odds. As they reached the main road, their phones buzzed with messages from the charity event organizers wondering where they were. But both men knew they had more important things to discuss, plans for future collaborations, both on and off the pitch. The forest had tested them, but it had also given them something invaluable, a partnership that would last the rest of their lives. You know what the strangest part is? Bale said as they drove toward civilization. What's that? I feel like we could take on the world now. Like there's nothing we can't accomplish together. Ronaldo nodded, understanding exactly what his friend meant. They had faced their deepest fears, their darkest doubts, and emerged stronger. The charity match would have to wait for another day, but their real victory, the triumph of friendship over rivalry, of cooperation over competition, was already complete. And as they drove through the Welsh countryside, both men knew that their greatest adventures were still ahead of them. The forest had taken 2 rivals and returned 2 champions. But more importantly, it had given them something neither had expected to find: a true friend for life.